Ciao ragazzi e bentornati e benvenuti alla prima lezione del terzo episodio di Italian Accelerator, che è l'unico programma su YouTube per studenti avanzati fatto in questo modo. Io sono Manu, questo è Italy Made Easy, che è il nome del canale. Questa lezione è associata all'episodio 3 di Italian Accelerator, che è una conversazione, è la terza parte della mia conversazione con la mia amica Rosella. Okay, so I'm going to show you a small clip from that interview, that chat, and then I'll come back and I'll tell you a bit more about it. Allora, la cosa che ti piace di più dell'Italia / italiani?
Non lo so. È una cosa che mi piace ma che può avere un effetto collaterale ed è la familiarità, perché a volte si trasforma in troppa familiarità.
Sì.
Sì. Però mi piace questa cosa che, insomma, che si chiacchiera, che si sorride. Siamo naturalmente smile prone.
Benissimo, so here I've asked Rosella what she likes the most of Italians, and she doesn't know, and then she's, I think it's like familiarity, the fact that we are so friendly and so smile prone. She even uses an English word, but that may have a side effect, which is too much familiarity, meaning people get a little bit too comfortable with each other. So let's see what expressions I would like you to learn from this particular chunk. So to ask what do you like the most, I said, cosa ti piace di più? Now I know this is basic Italian and you know how to ask what do you like, but it's that di più that I want to stress, because sometimes you get confused between when do I say più and when do I say di più. What are you looking at here is that di più, more or the most, is referred to a verb. So what do you like the most? So it's how much of the liking you do. Whenever we are altering a verb with this expression più, we tend to use the expression di più. Now later on you will see di meno, which is just the opposite. It means less or the least. So, che cosa ti piace di più? What do you like the most? Now, you only use più when what follows is an adverb or an adjective. For example, questo quaderno è più rosso di questa matita, obviously. So I'm only saying more red, so più rosso, I don't need to say di più. Okay, I hope that clarifies that little thing, because I actually hear it a lot. So I guess it is a problem there. Now, Rosella talks about effetto collaterale. So the familiarity can have an effetto collaterale, and that's simply a side effect. So this is usually used for medications, that kind of side effect, okay? But we can use it in conversation like she has. Then she says, è una cosa che blah blah blah. I want to point out that cosa. Cosa literally means thing. And we use cosa a lot, just like I suppose in English you'd say it's a thing. When you don't have an actual word, it's a thing. It's like saying stuff, okay? So yeah, you feel free to use cosa a lot more. So è una cosa che mi piace molto. It's a thing that I like a lot. It's something. Now, of course, I could say è qualcosa, but we definitely prefer to say una cosa. È una cosa che non mangio. Per esempio, il pollo è una cosa che non mangio. Chicken is a thing that I don't eat. Rather than il pollo è qualcosa che non mangio, it's a little bit unnatural for an Italian native speaker. So maybe you can change your qualcosa, which is a good word, into una cosa, which is a more colloquial version of it, I suppose. Mhm. Perlomeno ad Oristano, a Trieste non c'era.
Meno.
C'era di meno, c'era di meno, ok.
No. Facciamo così. Sì.
Non era così forte questo sentimento di familiarità in quella città. È vero.
Ecco, poi salviamo anche a Trieste una Federica Rupeno, per esempio, che è sempre nei nostri
Quanto
cuori.
è bella, veramente, sì.
È sempre meravigliosa.
Quanto le vogliamo
Sì.
bene, è vero, sì. Basically, in this section, we're talking about that sense of familiarity that she loves about Italians and that we are smile prone. Also, note that Rosella is a bilingual, I mean, she's a polyglot like myself. So we tend to use more English than most people. I'm sure that my parents, my mom, my grandma, my sister wouldn't know what small prawn means, okay? So that's just something that it's happening between two people who know English. Now, we say that this sense of familiarity, we didn't quite have it in Trieste, which is where we studied, and that's where we made friends, because in that city, we kind of, people weren't very friendly, okay? But of course, that doesn't apply to our friend Federica Rupeno, which we mentioned in the video. In case you're wondering, she's not famous, it's just a friend. So what comes up out of this conversation? Perlomeno. Perlomeno means at least, ok? Quindi, for example, non hai fame, ma perlomeno mangia un biscotto. You're not hungry, but at least have a cookie. Okay, so perlomeno is really at least, in that sense. It works quite similarly to English, at least, perlomeno. Now, then we said that in Trieste, that sense of familiarity, c'era di meno. Here's the di meno, which is the opposite of di più. Why is it di meno and not meno? Well, because we are altering the c'era, which is the verb. There was less of that. So we're altering the c'era, we're kind of using di meno as an adverb, if you know what that means, okay? C'era di meno. Now, of course, if I wanted to say there was less familiarity, then I could say c'era meno familiarità. But in that case, the meno is working as an adjective of familiarità. You see how that works, right? You know this stuff. And then, of course, she says, salviamo una Federica Rupeno. Salviamo is from the verb salvare, and it means to save. So she said, now, okay, Trieste wasn't very friendly. Let's save our friend because she was amazing. She was fantastic, very sweet. So you understand what we're saying with salviamo? It actually means to save.
Perché la città è piccola, perché ho fatto le scuole qui e quindi, capito, i contatti sono sempre quelli, ecco.
Certo.
Se vai da Benetton, ci sono 2 Benetton.
Sì.
Se vai da Sisley, ci sono 2 Sisley. Non è che puoi
Sì.
scialare tantissimo,
Scialare?
E poi scialare.
Scialare.
Sì, non è che poi, non è che tutta questa scelta, tutta questa libertà, o vai di lì o vai di là.
Sì. No, Rosella is saying that in Oristano, where she lives now, there's even a bigger sense of familiarity. Few people are even more friendly, but that's maybe because she went to school there, and it's a small town, and people know each other. And then she says, there's not many options. Like if you want to go to Sisley or Benetton, there's only 2 of each. So it's not like you can really choose a lot. There's an interesting part here. You saw that I was a little bit puzzled with a word that she said. Okay, I'll tell you why in a second. Now, Rosella says, ho fatto le scuole qui. She's using the verb fare for the fact that she attended school. Now, is there a better way of saying that? Probably, ho frequentato le scuole qui. Ho studiato qui. But this is what I want you to understand, is that whenever we speak Italian, we are just as lazy as we are in English. Rosella and I have a higher level of education than most people, but still, we're friends, we're chilled, we are not trying to sound perfect and impress each other. So she's using what is very common, which is the verb fare, for anything that I don't want to use a specific verb. Okay. Ho fatto le scuole, I did my schools here. Okay, so it sounds weird sometimes in English, but we fare everything. Of course I can say ho preparato una cena, ho preparato una pizza, ho cucinato una pasta, whatever. Ho fatto una cena, ho fatto la pizza, ho fatto la pasta. We just do stuff, okay? It's a lot quicker to say fare than it is to think of an appropriate verb. Now, it doesn't work all the time. Don't start saying fare for everything, but this is an example where it's just simpler to say ho fatto le scuole qui. This is interesting. Now, you know the word capito. Capito means understood, got it. So we use it in sentences like ho capito, or hai capito, or simply capito, understood? But here she says, and I don't remember the actual sentence, perché qui, capito, and she goes on. She's actually using that capito almost as an interjection. She's just saying, because here, and that's, when I was rewatching the recording, I thought, we do that. Because, I'm used to saying stuff like, what do I say? Perché qui, sai, I kind of go with sai, which is like, and maybe it's because I think a lot in English. Maybe I've changed my way a little bit more. But yeah, capito is a way of filling in the space when you're having a conversation and you're throwing in a word meaning, you're confirming that they know what you're talking about, pretty much. It's the same idea, but yeah, we can use capito as something that we put in between. It's quite interesting, isn't it? I learned something as well. I was reminded of something. And here's the confusion. She says, if you want to go to Sisley or Benetton, there's only two. It's not like you can scialare. That really threw me off because, first of all, it's a very unusual word. It's old-fashioned. I think it was mostly used like in Sicilian Italian back like a century ago. It's not something that I would definitely say a lot, but I know the verb scialare as mean to waste money. Okay, another word would be sperperare, which is a very strange sounding word, sperperare. And that means to just waste money, okay? To spend without any conscience. But it didn't apply to what she was saying, really. She wasn't talking about shopping. She was talking about, as she says in the following sentence, it's not like you have a lot of options. It's not like you have so much freedom in the choice. So, why am I telling you this? You're not going to use the word scialare ever. You're probably never going to hear it by an Italian speaker. She's from an island, maybe that's how she says. I don't know. Love you, Rosella. The reason I'm telling you is that even though I didn't understand, I understood. Why? Because from the context, the fact that she just said, it's a small town and, there's only two of this kind of shop and it's not like you can a lot. And then she says, non hai molta libertà. There's not a lot of freedom to choose between many options. So I kind of got it. So even though in my brain scialare means to spend money or to waste money, she meant it to mean choice maybe. Maybe she meant it to mean it's not like you can choose a lot. So this is my message to you. There will be many occasions where you don't actually understand the word or you thought it meant something else or they're using it in a strange way. Trust your gut feeling. Trust the context telling you what that word means. You're probably right. Okay. Sì.
I bar, idem, alla fine frequenti sempre quelli.
Certo.
Una mia ex compagna di classe ha un negozio di marche italiane importanti, Dolce Gabbana, Cavalli, Armani, eccetera, e quindi vado spesso anche da lei a trovarla o a comprare. Perché no?
Se si può. Sì.
Sì.
So in this segment, we keep talking about life in Oristano, and she said that she has a friend who's got a shop with the big Italian brands, and when she goes there to talk, not to shop, and then I say, well, let's have a look at the expressions, actually, that's probably easier. Alla fine frequenti sempre quelli. She's talking about the bar, which in Italian, as you might know, it's a cafe. We say bar, but it's a cafe. Alla fine frequenti sempre quelli. In the end, you end up frequenting, as in hanging out, always at the same places. Alla fine frequenti sempre quelli. That's the thing. One thing I want to tell you about is the alla fine. It's very common for English speakers to say things like finalmente or getting confused with how to say finally. Now, this alla fine means in the end. So at the end of the story, at the end of the day, that kind of stuff, okay? So alla fine, okay, we could say at the end of the day, or in the end. It doesn't mean finally as in, oh, finally dinner is ready. That's not it. That is the finally that we translate with finalmente. That's the finally that you would want to say finalmente for. But in many cases, you're trying to say, usually I hear the wrong finalmente from English speakers when you got like a list, I did this, and then at the end I did that. And you guys, some of you are saying finalmente in that context. It doesn't work. You should say alla fine, which is at the end of a sequence. Okay? So not finalmente, alla fine. And when she says that she goes there to talk, not to shop, or sometimes to shop, and my comment was se si può. That might throw you off. Se means if. Si può, what's that? That is an impersonal construction. If you haven't studied this, you're not going to understand it. But in Italian, we do an impersonal construction. Like in English, you would say one says, one shops, one does, one can. Who's one? Someone, yeah? In Italian, we use the verb in the third person singular, usually, with the reflexive pronoun si, which in this case it's an impersonal pronoun, si. So si può is like saying one can. Se si può, if one can, why not shop? That's what I meant, okay? La stessa pizzeria, quindi alla fine...
E quindi è bello comunque che tu entri in un posto e dici, oh, quanto tempo che non ti vedo, come stai? Cosa stai facendo? Insomma,
Sì.
un minimo di calore umano.
Sì. We say it again, alla fine, and again it means at the end of the day, like in the end. As in, after a list, in the end, all is well what ends well, or something, whatever the saying is, okay? Now, è bello che entri in un posto e bla bla bla. È bello che entri. It's nice that you walk into a place and they greet you with this human warmth. That's what she says, with calore umano. Calore, warmth. Umano, human. Calore umano. È bello che entri bla bla bla. Often English speakers would tend to say buono a lot more than we do in Italian. Because in English you'd say it's good that you walk into a place and they greet you with, warmth. In Italian, a lot of things are bello, they're not buono. Buono is really used mostly for food, for the flavor of something, sometimes for the quality of a product, but it's never used for example, the quality of a film or a piece of art. All those things are bello. So, a good painting è un bel ritratto, o è un bel quadro. A good movie is un bel film. A good book is un bel libro. So those things are beautiful, they're not good per se, literally. So here is an example where we will actually say it's beautiful that you walk into, you could say that the same in English, but in English you might say, oh, it's good or it's great that you walk in a place. So yeah, notice how we're saying bello, and maybe you can try and use it a little bit more. Sì. Invece qual è la cosa che ti piace di meno dell'Italia o degli italiani, a parte la riforma scolastica?
L'approssimazione. Siamo sempre convinti che, dai, si può fare anche così, dai, in qualche modo faremo. No, in qualche modo non faremo. Prendi un appuntamento, fai le cose con calma, organizzati, fatti un piano. No,
Perché tu sei proprio
italiano
inglese, tu sei molto britannica. Perché,
sarà.
perché questa cosa non è l'arte di arrangiarsi degli italiani?
Sì, 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 è uno dei pochissimi luoghi comuni che abbiamo che sono assolutamente rispondenti alla realtà e sono di tutta l'Italia. Non c'è Milano e Napoli che tenga, o Cagliari, no.
I asked Rosella what she doesn't like or what she likes the least of Italians. And she says that it's the approximation. We're all a little bit kind of like, yeah, kind of wing it. Yeah, that's the idea that she's conferring. I don't know if you got it from hearing it or from reading the Italian subtitles. But yeah, she said, Italians kind of wing it and they think they're always going to be fine. But really, don't just wing it. Just make an appointment, plan, work at it so that way it works. Don't be so approximate. And I said, but hold on. Isn't that one of the Italian qualities, which is something that we talk about and I'll show you soon? It's l'arte di arrangiarsi, which is the art to wing it, really. That's how we describe ourselves. We are, as an Italians are a people that has this gift of kind of make do, okay? And then, okay, well, let me show you the expression that's easier. La cosa che ti piace di meno. Here's another example of di meno. So di più, di meno. Same thing as before. And then she says, oh, Italians, they're so approximate. They say, oh, in qualche modo faremo. In qualche modo, somehow. Learn this one. Somehow, in some way. That's what it means, in some fashion. In qualche modo faremo. Why the future tense? Well, in Italian, the future tense, it's rarely used, and it's definitely rarely used for the future, but it's used for things that are in the future, but there's a high degree of doubt that they will happen. that is when you should be using the future, not for things that you're certain about. If you're certain, use the present tense. If you're certain, in your mind, it might not happen because things have changed in life, but if you're certain that for Christmas 2020 you'll be in Italy, use the present tense to talk about it. Okay? Do not use the future, because whenever you use the future, you give an Italian listener the idea that you're doubting that it might happen. So here it's very appropriate, because Italians will say, somehow we'll manage. But will we? Okay. That's why there is a future tense. Here's the expression that I was telling you about, l'arte di arrangiarsi. Arrangiarsi means to wing it and to make do with what you've got. And that's how we describe ourselves, really. L'arte di arrangiarsi. We have this arte di arrangiarsi. Now, that's actually very true, because that you just said, that I've just said about the arte di arrangiarsi, is one of the few luoghi comuni. What is a luogo comune? Luogo comune, or luoghi comuni, commonplace, meaning stereotype. She could have said stereotipo, but she said luogo comune. You understand they're kind of the same? It's a commonplace. We said that in English, don't we? Yeah, I think pretty sure we did. And then she says, this thing happens all over Italy. Non c'è Milano che tenga. Non c'è Milano che tenga. You may have problems with this expression because it doesn't make sense, does it? Non c'è, there isn't, Milano, Milan, che tenga. No, che tenga, there is no Milan that, and then tenga is the subjunctive, present tense subjunctive of tenere, to hold. What does it mean? There's no Milano that holds. Well, in Italian we have this sentence that it's usually used with scusa. Non c'è scusa che tenga. There's no excuse that holds up. You understand that? So she's saying that there's no Milano capable of defending the idea that they don't do it. They do it in Milan as well. They're approximate in Milan, just as they are in Naples, just as they are in Sardinia, where she is. So, non c'è Milano che tenga. The way you are going to use it, generally, is with the expression scusa. Non c'è scusa che tenga. There's no excuse that you can add, or that you could add, that would make me blah, blah, blah. Okay? You know, so if I invite you for dinner, and you start saying, yes, but non c'è scusa che tenga, devi venire. There's no excuse that you can add, you must come. So that's what it means, okay? Non c'è scusa che tenga.
In qualche modo ce la caveremo.
Sì. Ma l'importante è, alla fine ce la caveremo, no?
Sì, abbiamo associato a questa cosa...
Se alla fine uno se la cava, ben venga alla fine, no? No. Well, I love this segment. You know, we keep talking about this art of winging it, and she quotes another thing that Italians will say, in qualche modo, somehow, ce la caveremo. Ce la caveremo. This one probably lost you. It's from the verse cavarsela, which, what does it mean? Literally, cavare means to remove. For example, cavare is the verb that you would do for a cork. Okay, you take it out. Cavare. Think of a cave, taking out of a cave. I don't know, cavare means to take out of whatever. That se is the reflexive pronoun si. So it's like saying cavarsi. So it's like we're using cavare, which is a strange verb, in a reflexive way, which makes no sense. Well, to get somebody out of a situation, suppose. Yeah. You're getting the meaning already. And then that la is a direct object pronoun, it. But what it? We don't know. And the reason I'm showing you is that Italian is full of these verbs with all those particles attached to them. They're called pronominal verbs, or some other way. And you do not analyze or translate the individual parts, because together they create a new verb with a new meaning. So cavarsela means to get out of a situation, to make it, to succeed at doing something, okay? Cavarsela. But we don't use it like that, because cavarsela is an infinitive. We gotta conjugate it. So how do we conjugate it? Well, it's a reflexive verb, so we have to use the reflexive pronoun first. Me, ti, si, and so on. But we also have to use the direct object pronoun la. In Italian, whenever we have two pronouns, the first one changes the vowel to e because it sounds better. So mi would become me. Me la, and then we conjugate the verb in whatever tense you need. So in present tense would be me la cavo, I manage. Te la cavi, you manage. Se la cava, he or she manages. Ce la caviamo, we manage, or in this case, she's using the future because she wants to add a little bit of doubt. Ce la caveremo, we'll manage. Another verb that has this, for example, that you may not actually be very good at, is andarsene. And the way it sounds is me ne vado. This is the verb andare that you know, used reflexively, which makes no sense, I go myself, plus the particle ne, which means of it. If you try to analyze it, this would drive you crazy because it means I go myself of it. It means I'm out of here. So if you're, imagine when in English you say, oh, I'm out of here. Like, you know, you get up and say, okay, me ne vado, I'm out of here. That's what it means. It doesn't need a destination. It doesn't need any more information. Me ne vado. I'm out. I'm out of here. Yeah. And then I say, ma what's the problem, Rosella? I mean, if in the end, if one manages to succeed, what's the problem, right? Se uno se la cava. Se uno. What's the uno? That's like the English if one. If one makes it, what's the problem, right? Se uno se la cava. That is me using the verb cavarsela in the third person because uno means one, as in someone, so I have to use the third person. If one manages, benvenga. This might confuse you a little bit because benvenga makes you, it sounds like welcome, doesn't it? Well, benvenuto, welcome. Benvenga means it is welcome. Okay, benvenga, that's subjunctive of venire, present tense subjunctive, venga. It's like saying, if somebody manages, well, then it's welcome. But we use it to mean, then what's the problem? You know, if that happens, what's the problem? I'll give you an example. Okay, let's say that you are running a triathlon and you tell me, oh, I'm only doing it, you know, just for the fun of it. But, you know, if I win, benvenga. Well, and if I win, why not? That'd be great. So it doesn't translate well in English, I don't think. If you have a good translation, let me know for this one. Benissimo, ragazzi. Facciamo una pausa. We're going to take a break for today's lesson because it's been quite long already. I've realized that all of my Italian Accelerator lessons will be too long, so there's always going to be 2 lessons per Italian chat. Please do come prepared to class. That's the teacher in me. But yeah, there's no point me explaining the expressions if you haven't watched the Italian chat a few times and try to understand it yourself. That's how you're going to learn, not with me. You're going to learn by yourself. Somebody said that languages cannot be taught, and I agree. Languages can only be learned. So it's up to you to learn it, and I'm here to help you somehow, whichever way I can. So come back next week for the second part of this analysis of this particular episode. If you enjoy this kind of videos, please give it the thumbs up. It really helps me and the channel grow. If you're not a subscriber, do subscribe. That way you don't miss any of my daily lessons. And if you need to watch, if you want to watch the other episodes of Italian Accelerator, they're right here and in the card that comes out telling you where to go. Other than that, I will see you next week. Grazie mille. Ciao ciao. Ok, grazie mille e ci vediamo nel prossimo video and don't forget to subscribe. Ciao ciao!